Space, the final frontier. Well, maybe not now, but it definitely was in the 60s. Now, everyone knows about the space race that happened from 1957 to 1975, and the first moon landing, which happened in July 1969. But is it 100% true? Don't disregard me as cuckoo just yet. Hear me out. Okay, so there are a bunch of reasons why America would stage the moon landing, but the biggest issue, in my opinion, was with Russia. The tension of the Cold War was heating up, and the US had to beat Russia or their reputation would be dashed. So it made perfect sense that America would fake it. As well as this, the people of America were so excited about landing on the moon, so the national demand and expectation meant that if the US couldn't pull this off, there would be repercussions. Side note, this wasn't necessarily a bad thing. America had huge advancements in technology as well as inventions due to this pressure, such as artificial limbs, space blankets used to treat hypothermia, water purifiers, and more. Okay, so tangent over. But the point is, the US were not lacking in reasons as to why they had to win. That's some background info on before the space race. Now to look at the actual event. So the space race was initially present under John F. Kennedy, who sadly only served as president for 2 years. There's a huge amount of controversy and lack of clarity about JFK's assassination, but I could make a whole other video on that. The basis is that many people believed it was staged by the government and blamed on a member of the public, with facts such as them refusing to release the documents of the death after the allowed period of time, taking cameras off civilians who were recording at the time, and taking him to a private hospital, which they're not supposed to do, in Washington with a different autopsy technician than usual. Okay, so that over with, Nixon now comes into power, a Republican leader, which says something about him already, who will do anything to crush the opposition. No, really. He was literally forced to resign in August of 1974 because he was said to be bugging the opposition's rooms in the Watergate scandal. But before all this, Nixon was the president in which the moon landing occurred under. Supposedly. Okay, now to get into the nitty-gritty of why the moon landing could be argued to be faked. Many people comment on factors such as the flag waving when there is limited gravity on the moon, multiple strong light sources apparently equal to that of the sun, and the lack of stars in the backgrounds of the images. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I can't exactly weigh in on that aspect of the validity of the arguments against this. However, when looking for conspiracies, I found many opinions both for and against these specific arguments, so it's kind of difficult to assess. Also, a less commonly discussed theory is that of the author David Mead, who discusses the radiation zone, in which he states, a belt of radiation, the Van Allen belt, exists around the world that cannot be passed through without nuclear protection, causing further controversy and confusion among the population. So, historians as a whole generally see inconsistencies within the hoax theorist approach. However, a lack of reliable evidence from the event due to it being more science-focused than history-based means it's more difficult to get a secure view on the subject. However, the majority of viewpoints I've analysed have used historians' methodology in taking the side of it being real due to the lack of evidence from the time. But, as historians generally do, they have a huge bias towards their own viewpoint. As well as this, it tends to be the younger generation who believe in conspiracies such as the moon landing, and most historians are older, so it's difficult to get an accurate gauge of how the modern generation view this. Overall, more people definitely argue the case that the moon landing was real. However, just because something is popular doesn't mean it's right. To me, there are a lot of suspicious elements in the moon landing that would probably be passable on their own. However, because so many of them are apparent, it's difficult to wholly believe nothing was tampered with. But it's really up to you what you believe. I hope this can give a little bit more clarity on the events of the moon landing if you're not very knowledgeable on it, and I hope you have the opportunity to make up your own mind about what you believe, because that's the most important thing. Thanks for listening.